What's up YouTube, it's Vapor13. I'm doing the first of a new series of informative style videos that I want to do for you guys. This first one, I've been making these original stickers for Peros. I'm going to send him a special pack. I don't really do trading or anything, but this is just something between me and him. So I've been having fun with these Copic watercolor markers. I never really learned how to use these or anything, but I just kind of played around with them and thought I would make a video on how I decided to use them, and also how I use them with Prisma colored pencils. So I'm going to include a time lapse. It might be in a second video, I'm not sure yet, but it is of this piece right here that I'm showing you. But real quick, I'll show you the other things that I was able to create just playing around while I was experimenting. And not all of these are technically finished. This top one right here, I still need to go in with Prisma colored pencils. This one's pretty finished, and these were just pretty crazy. So I'm gonna show you some of the techniques that I use, I guess. I don't know if you call them techniques, but anyway, I'll try and talk through my method for how I approach coloring these. So I'll just start with this paper here. So one key point that I tend to follow is to always work light first and then work in your darks later. So I like to figure out base coats. For instance, here on this example, I've got a blue around here and pink in here, blue, pink, blue, and those are kind of my base coats that I put down first. For something more like this, it's the same concept. You just incorporate blending your colors more frequently and just I try and keep it in an even distribution. So yeah, start with light colors first, and primarily your base coats, so your main broad areas that you want to be whatever color. So I'll start out with like a light blue, for example, and I found that it works better to move quickly, but like go back over your areas a lot. And the way watercolor works is the color sits there still pretty wet, so once you build up that surface, you're kind of getting a small puddle, so to speak, and you're pushing the color out of that puddle, if that makes sense. So you can go back into places and kind of push it around to even out and cover up those stroke marks. If you just go like this, you'll have stroke marks getting involved, but if you go back over it, you can push it around enough that it evens out. And then just for basic blending, you start, progressively getting darker. So I'm gonna work in this next level blue and go quickly, and then just kind of like with a really light hand, just kind of drag it out some, breaking up the distribution of that color, and then start in the dark and pull that color back down with your lighter color and go back up, and then just kind of work it in and rub in those streak marks. I think my markers are kind of dying. Anyway, that's the gist of it. A technique for layering is either taking a darker color of that tone or just any other color that you like the way it layers. You just have to practice and figure out how these colors work together when you layer them. But you work lighter first. That way any color you want to put on top of that is typically going to work, and it's always going to work if it's a darker color. So it's much easier to layer your colors if you put your lighter colors on the bottom first. You kind of have to work backwards since it's watercolor. Anyway, if I were to add another layer, say this is my fill to start out with, and I want to develop it a little more by adding another layer, what I'm going to do is pick another color, and I'm just going to go with a pink, and it should create a light purple effect, not too serious. I'm going to go with a warm pink, and you're just going to draw right over the top of it. So technically you could do your boxes, your shapes that mimic the inside of a letter. Something like that. So that's one technique that you could use. If you were to ignore that that's there, what I've typically been doing is, say this is a box. If you imagine that there's like, this is actually part of a box, I'll outline the edge of the box with my secondary color and then bring it down, and I'll do something to kind of fatten up this bulk area, or like where it connects, something to emphasize that color, and then bring it down, and then I'll either fade this out to be a sharp point, or I'll bring it down fat and kind of blend it out so it kind of fades out into whatever's going on below. And then if I do want to add more to that, then I'll kind of take this box idea and just kind of connect and let it dissipate as it goes down. This is really sloppy, but I can show you an example of, like, in here I started with the base coat of blue, and then I came back on that edge and did added these dashes. Another example is this here. I had the blue first, and then I added green and faded the green out, and then went back over the green again with a dark green, but leaving the blue on the trim. So doing the light layer first let me have a nice light color trim, even though I put a dark color inside. So that's kind of where you're planning backwards to color with these watercolor markers. These get pretty intense with like light green over the pink, and then over here just a whole bunch of fades and then hatching over with other colors. So it's pretty much that simple, and then just mixing up those ideas. And just what's fun about the Copic markers is that you can really just do anything that'll blend, and you'll figure out pretty easily what's not going to work together. And then even so, you can push it a little. For instance, if I'm trying to use this light blue, and I want to work in this dark pink, that's just not gonna blend. But you can use that to your style if you choose. You know, you can break it down so it looks artistically like it's blending through, even though it's not. Things like that, and then always going back over. So adding those, it added an effect, even though the color didn't really work as the color that it's supposed to be. It layered over these in a nice way that added an element or a layer on top that makes it look more interesting or more busy. So that's really it, just playing with blending. I tend to do that first, is get my fades into one color into another with all the light tones, and then I'll go in on top of that darkening edges with the darker tones, and then I'll go in after that and start doing the final layers with the these designs and hatching back across with other colors to make that final like top layer. And then after I get the Prismacolor, well, okay, they're Copics, but there's also Prismacolor markers, which I don't think work as well as Copics, but whatever, they do work just fine. I've done a couple projects with them. But either one, Copics or Prisma markers, afterwards, I like to take Prisma colored pencils. They're a very waxy colored pencil, so they layer up a surface instead of like Crayola, which is a hard lead, so it doesn't really layer onto your surface, it just kind of scratches it. But these Prismacolor pencils are really nice for going back over and detailing. I like to use the white as best I can for highlights. It's kind of weak, but it works really well on darker edges, like in this pink. But in this top one here, you can't really tell it's there, but once you notice it, and if you see the process, it actually does quite a bit to the piece. It's one of those little things that you don't really notice, but it changes a lot. But so if this were a box, you know, this white can go right on top of it just like that. So there, that's a whole nother layer of depth or detail that goes into the piece. So you can have your base layer of your light tones that are doing all kinds of crazy gradations and fading in and out of each other. Then you can add another layer of hatching back over it with these other colored designs or darker tone designs that kind of break up those flat color ranges. And then on top of that, you can come in with the colored pencils and add your highlights. You can always come in and say you had some kind of glow, you can add like the color of the glow that's going on, like that, blend it in with the highlights. Prismacolor pencils are incredible for blending, and if you start out really lightly and you gradually build up with pressure, you can really get a smooth, consistent, streakless fade between really any color. Well, I think that about wraps it up as far as the tutorial is concerned. I'll have this be part 1 since it's already a long enough video, and part 2 will be the time lapse, where you can see a majority of these techniques that I'm talking about go into the process that I lay them down. So you can see what I mean by putting the light color tones down first, getting all your base tones filled out, and then moving on from there in sort of layers, so to speak, with then adding your darker gradations and your contrast, and then adding your designs and hatching back on top of that, getting all your colors done and your fill done. And then going in at the end with the Prismacolor pencils and accenting it with highlights, and so on and so forth. As far as developing a style, you know, you just play with this stuff. You can go pretty funky with the designs you work out, and what blends is pretty intense with I was able to go into here with pinks and greens and just in going through this clear section. It gets a really cool watercolor effect since they are watercolor markers. So just go crazy with it and just figure it out through what works and what doesn't, and you'll really find out that there's not much that doesn't work. It's just figuring out how to make it work for you. These are very versatile tools for coloring. So it makes it really fun because it's pretty hard to screw up. You just gotta pick a theme with it, and you can start adding effects. As I ramble on here, you can add effects. Like I tried going in here and I had a dark to light tone. It's fading down and it's a little hard to see, but I went in with a white and accented in the middles with a white to kind of make them have a little bit more contrast and pop out more. Some other effects on here, I came back over my 3D detailing on the top edge and brought down the black to make it kind of feel like it's textured a little bit more. And then I went in with a yellow green on top of this. This was all dark green at first. I went in with a yellow green colored pencil and made it look like it had a shine going through the middle. And then here in the 3D I did the opposite with white. I brought the white through and added some texture to it. I also added this purple and the highlights with Prismacolor. So there's a lot of little things you can do with just layering and adding texture. I think it's really just about texture. So that's it for my tutorial. I hope it wasn't too dull. I hope it was clear. I hope you learned something. If anyone has any other information or cool ideas to use these tools that I didn't mention, I never used these, so I really just started figuring this out. Throw your suggestions down in the comments. If you have any questions furthermore, throw those down in the comments below. There's the monthly battle going on right now, Damaged Ace Culture on Facebook. Check it out. The word is fuel, F-U-E-L. I believe that's it. New videos coming soon. I'm happy to be back trying to do more work. Vapor13. Check me up on Facebook. I got the voice1arts.com website going strong, and trying to get back in it. Thank you guys so much for sticking in there with me and supporting me through all this, and I hope I can really start helping a lot more of you out. So get involved with the battles. Damaged Ace Culture, Facebook, check it out.